This week, Pablo Zurro from Fortra is with us to discuss the practice of pen testing. Then Travis Howerton from RegScale joins us to talk about RegOps and the need for compliance automation. Finally, in the enterprise security news, Cybereason raises $100 million, lots of funding, 6+ companies coming out of stealth, probably because RSA is around the corner. Awesome new newsletters, awesome new reports. FDA will start rejecting medical devices with bad security. Operation Cookie Monster. Criminal doesn't realize Metasploit is free. Security and IT professionals pressured to keep breaches quiet. The latest trends in AI, and are there too many vendors at RSA? All that and more in this episode of Enterprise Security Weekly.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where we talk security vendors and aren't afraid to name names. It's Enterprise Security Weekly.
Attackers are only getting more proficient, so how can you proactively adapt your cybersecurity strategy? Core Security by Fortra helps you uncover and prioritize the risks that pose the biggest threat to your organization. Core Impact is a penetration testing tool that safely finds and exploits vulnerabilities using the same techniques as attackers. You can conduct advanced pen tests with ease using certified exploits and automations. Take your engagements even further by pairing with our additional red teaming tools from Cobalt Strike and Outflank. Learn more at securityweekly.com/Fortra Core Security. Welcome to Enterprise Security Weekly and happy National Buccaneers Day. Gus will let me know if I said that right. This is episode 313, recorded on Thursday, April 13th, 2023. I'm your host, Adrian Sanabria, and joining me is the Czar of Zero Trust, the captain of content, Katie Teitler. Been a while since I've seen you, Katie.
I know, it's been such a long time. I've missed you, Adrian. I really have.
We did a pre-record for RSA Week yesterday, so we just did this whole show yesterday, but you're not going to see it until April 27th if you're watching or listening to this.
But I'm going to get the day right this time. Yesterday, I screwed up your whole national whatever day by thinking we were talking about the day that was yesterday instead of the day that it will be aired. So I promise I won't foil you.
Yeah, I got confused too. I remember doing the prep call with the folks that we interviewed on that episode, and for half the prep call, I was telling them it was a live podcast. And thankfully, before the end of that prep call, I realized, oh no, that's right, we're going to pre-record this. It's not going live until 2 weeks later. So yeah, it's we don't pre-record often, but so it threw us all for a little bit of a loop.
It's all good, all good.
Also joining us is the Baron of Bloodhound, the Pirate King of PowerShell. We haven't seen you in a while, Sean Metcalf. How are you?
Doing good, Adrian. You know, got a bunch of things in the hopper and working on some stuff behind the scenes, and took some vacation. So it's good to relax poolside and avoid a computer for a while, reconnect with the natural world, get some sun and some good swimming time in. So yeah, it's good. So what day is today and what does that mean?
The Buccaneers, during the Korean War, the 65th adopted the nickname the Buccaneers, which honors so Boricane is the Taino word for Puerto Rico. And so this was a division of the army, I believe it is, that's entirely made up of Puerto Ricans. And so they shut it down after World War II and then brought it back for the Korean War. And yeah, it's just highlighting their service, and that division has more than 2,700 Purple Hearts, 600 Bronze Stars, 250 Silver Stars, 9 Distinguished Serve Crosses, and 1 Medal of Honor. So it's
that's fantastic.
It's a big deal, really, I guess. Great. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I was hoping it was National Cheesecake Day, and apparently it's not. But I will eat some cheesecake in honor of the Buccaneers. So.
And it's only the third year. This became an official, like, at the federal level, National Day in 2021. So this is only the third year for it. Yeah, usually we do something silly, but me and Gus are Puerto Rican, so I felt like I felt obligated to include this one. And I've got a bunch of cousins and relatives who served. Though I don't know if I have any that served in the Korean War. I know right off the top of my head, my cousin Nelson, my cousin Wally served in Vietnam. So I don't know about the Korean War, but I've got tons of cousins down there in Puerto Rico and all over, really.
Excellent.
All right, a quick announcement. Join us at an upcoming official cybersecurity summit in a city near you. This series of one-day invitation-only executive-level conferences are designed to educate senior cyber professionals on the latest threat landscape. We are pleased to offer our listeners $100 off admission when you use code SECWEEK23 to register. Visit securityweekly.com/cybersecurity summit to learn more and register today. And one of those I know is in Nashville because I've got some local security folks I know here in the community who are going to that one. All right. Our first interview today is sponsored by Fortra. And today's topic is the practice of pen testing, 2023 survey results revealed. I'm very excited about this because this pen test is, or the survey is focused on pen testers themselves, on getting feedback from folks who buy pen tests, but people who also do pen tests. So I'm really excited about digging into this one. And today we're excited to have Pablo Zurro yet again. He's been on the show, I think, at least 2 other times. He's the Cybersecurity Product Manager at Fortra, where he focuses specifically on core security cyber threat prevention solutions. Welcome to the show, Pablo.
Thank you, Adrian. Nice to be here again. I don't have Puerto Rican cousins. Here I am.
I'm sure you have cousins, though.
Yeah, I have. But I think none of them left Spain. So we're all here around.
Yeah. My lineage eventually goes back to Spain, but you have to go back a couple hundred years, I think. But yeah,
nice.
My name Sanabria comes from Spain. There's a part of Spain where there's
there's a lake.
Lago de Sanabria and Pueblo de Sanabria, right?
Mm-hmm. It's close to my hometown.
So was I correct in my description of the survey here? Who were the respondents to this survey? Let's just make sure I got that correct. First of all.
Yeah, so basically we send it to a lot of pen testing practitioners, so especially pen testers that fill it from all the community of users of Core Impact. But we also survey many of the companies that are customers of Fortra, even if they are not customers of our own pen testing services or products. So we have more than 30,000 customers. Not all of them answered, but we have a really bunch piece of data to be able to process from all over the world, from a lot of company sizes, and also from different job levels. So basically, we have like a lot of managers answering, some C-level, some directors, some pen testers themselves, and in the company size, we have like a third of it is small companies with less than 100 people, but all the rest is bigger than that, and having 60% of really huge companies with more than 10,000 people. So yeah, it's the scope of the survey is pretty wide, and we think that we have good answers to share today.
Yeah, and the total respondents I remember was a significant size, right? I forget exactly how many responded to the survey.
Yes, I don't know if I have it in front of me, but it was a big number. I think we have it in the whole big report that we'll share after the interview, and it was pretty huge.
Yeah. All right. So let's dig in here. So I think one of the cool things about doing a report like this, Pablo, is that once you've done it for a couple of years, you can start comparing things. And this is the fourth year that you've done it. So let's start there. What are some of the biggest and I think most surprising changes that you've seen this year compared to previous years?
So one of the it's interesting to see it, because as with 4 years we already have historical data. We one of the questions that we ask is how important is penetration testing to your organization's security posture. And what we saw is that there's some people who see it less important. So the important part of the important answer dropped a bit, but the somewhat important raised a bit. So yeah, there's we have like the same number of important plus somewhat important. So it's like some companies that are thinking that it's a bit less important that it was, but so that's a bit weird. And we also saw that the confidence of the organization security posture dropped like 15%. So this is also strange, because we see all over the world that pen testing is like a standard security practice that most of the people is doing, and seeing this drop in confidence, I think it's even a good thing, because having a good pen test doesn't mean you are secure. And seeing this feeling also in the community is a bit reassuring, because they are taking other actions to protect themselves. So probably it's that reduction of the confidence. I think it's due to more awareness, or also possibly due to the increase in ransomware, increase in attack vectors, more activity. So it seems like everybody's talking about that. Cybersecurity is becoming something like mainstream. So the companies, even if they are doing everything that they need to do and they are doing pretty good pen testing, they feel like less confident on having everything under control. So those were like the things that I would highlight.
Right, and that was yeah, and it's interesting also looking at just their security concerns in general, right? You know, like it's interesting because we look at a lot of other reports on this podcast, and one of them that came out recently is it's specific to the U.S., but it's the like the amount of fraud and crime that has been reported to the IC3. I forget what the FBI's IC3 stands for, but they have numbers on ransomware and BEC, and BEC is like 2 or 3 times bigger than ransomware, but ransomware it looks like ends up at the top of this list. It looks like last year it was number 2, and this year it's number 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like everybody's talking about that. So if you look at the news, everybody's talking about ransomware. Every company could get ransomed, and the BEC, the business email compromise, it's something that is more targeted. So it's probably the big companies are like more aware that this is a big issue. But right now, ransomware is everywhere. There's ransomware as a service attacking like everybody. And if you click the button and you're inside a company, whatever the size, or even if you're an individual, you can get part of your data encrypted, and they ask a ransom for you. So it's like for the main audience, it's probably like a bigger worry, the ransomware, and there's more talk about it. But yeah, also BEC is really huge for big companies. So that's why doing those phishing simulations and those phishing security awareness trainings are important.
And we got a question in from the audience, a really good question that you actually have a good answer for, I think, in Figure 3. And the question is, how important is remediating your findings from a pen test to you? And some interesting insights there.
To me, it's the most important thing after penetration testing, because otherwise it's completely useless.
What's the point?
If you can't, or if you don't remediate those findings, you will have the same report on the next pen test, and it doesn't help for anything else than checking the compliance box, which is something that we're seeing in some cases. But it's true that it's one of the big challenges in the organizations. Sometimes they hire a third-party company to do the pen test because they don't have the internal resources. But when they get the report, they don't have either the internal resources to remediate that. And this is like we saw that it's the biggest challenge of the organization when they face the penetration testing program. So a lot of them don't do pen tests directly because they know that they won't be able to remediate the issues uncovered. So they prefer to be blind and than knowing what happens without being able to remediate them. And that's a bit worrying, because at the end your security posture will go down, and you will be worse and worse every year.
I can't tell you how many times I've heard that, especially with new product categories too, where the security leaders say, "Man, I wish you hadn't shown me this." But yeah, so in Figure 3, I think the really interesting thing is you've got these two that these two responses that swapped places between 2022 and 2023. You've got lack of qualified third parties to do the testing was the #1 pen testing challenge in 2022, and it dropped from 45% to 30%. But then replacing it, you have lack of resources to act on findings and perform remediation, jumping from 35% to 58%. That's a huge jump.
Yes, I think it's due to that. So the awareness that pen testing is important is there. So the companies know that it's important to do it. There are companies doing great pen tests, and there's a lot of there's actually, this is a business that is growing. There's a lot of consultancy companies, security consultancy companies doing that, and they are improving their methodologies, and they are providing better and better results. And now that this is there and that it's available for companies, the ball is back into the companies hiring those third parties, because they cannot use the actionable data provided in the report, and that's why we think that they are worrying about that. So it's and now that they have the ball back on their side, they don't have resources in their security teams or in their IT teams to do anything with them. So they put them on the table, and they just wait until they have something to do.
Yeah, let's see what else. Sean or Katie, anything jump out at you here?
Absolutely. So, Pablo, given that the remediating efforts around pen tests and other security assessment results is challenging across organizations, and I've heard from many pen testers that they do a pen test, they deliver the report, they come back, 6 months later, 12 months later, what have you, and then they get the same results or similar results. So this is obviously a challenge. What do you think that consultants can do better to improve remediation success?
So I think that what they can do there is during the process of the pen testing, instead of waiting until the report, I think it's better to have these consultants as a trusted partner during the process. So that consultant should be able, during the pen test, to guide you on and to help the company, actually the customer, to understand what's going on, what are the problems that they're finding. I would try to help those teams to even remediate the finding during the test instead of waiting until the report, and changing a bit that approach. So instead of going there, sitting in front of the computer, trying to break everything and then provide a report, I think it's better to scope the pen test together with the target company, and have ongoing efforts during the test to help those blue teams to improve their processes and to remediate the findings during the way. So that would make it easier. The consultant, the pen tester, would be like a trusted partner for the company, and it will be easier for both to improve their security posture. So I think that would be a good approach.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so certainly when so I work for a security services company, and certainly we really take that approach of partnering with the customer and ensuring that we can work with them as a trusted partner. Do you see that customers are shifting from pen tests to more purple team engagements, which really aligns with what you just mentioned, where they're kind of working hand in hand and getting results sooner in order to resolve them, so that during the engagement they can test to ensure that those things have been resolved, or even full team or full term red team assessments instead? Have you seen any shifts in that area?
To me, it's not a shift, but it's a complement. So if you don't have good penetration testing results, the red teaming or purple teaming exercise would be a bit useless, because they will find the easy gaps and the low hanging fruit really easily. So at the end, it's like paying a lot or putting a lot of effort and doing a sophisticated engagement when you're not ready. So first, I would this is like the usual progression. So if you don't have a vulnerability management program or a vulnerability scans running every now and then, it's a bit useless to go to a penetration testing, because you will find like really easy to exploit vulnerabilities. If you're not doing penetration testing, you will probably have some gaps and some easy to find misconfigurations on your big attack surface. And once you have that covered, I think it makes sense to do a red teaming or a purple teaming engagement to learn what are really your gaps that could be exploited by an APT, and do this advanced learning during the engagement. So I think that's they are complements. So if you're doing red teaming or purple teaming exercises without doing the previous phases, I don't think you will get really great results from it.
So obviously, a lot of different types of testing are important for an organization. You can't just do one type of testing. But what's a good balance, between, things like vuln scans, pen test, automated red teaming? Because there are a lot of options, and it can get kind of confusing for companies who are just at their initial stages of testing. But you don't want to have a company have a bad experience. So what kind of things would you recommend? What types of combinations? What's the frequency? Are there any gotchas before a company starts to implement more of a continuous testing schedule, which incorporates some of the live testing as well?
So to me, the first step, if they don't have anything, it's to establish a vulnerability management program. So to have a vulnerability scanner running maybe, I don't know, weekly on every asset, because they are rotating. So to have it, if it's a small company, probably they can do it even daily. But I don't know if it makes a lot of sense if they are not changing anything. If it's an infrastructure that changes a lot, it makes more sense to do them more often. But I think that a weekly or even monthly vulnerability scanner would be okay. For the penetration testing, as the idea is to cover the gaps of the scanner, trying to use misconfigurations also besides exploits. I think it would be nice to have a check quarterly. If you're, I don't know, you could do like continuous pen testing, but changing the scope, and you would be pen testing every day, but different asset groups. So the same group of assets, I think it would be interesting to test it every quarter, and then the red teaming or purple teaming exercises. It depends on the assets that you have and the criticality of them. But I think that having one exercise, like a long one, because red teaming exercises or purple teaming exercises are long and sophisticated. I think that having it once a year, it would be okay. So yeah, it depends. At the end, the vulnerability scanner is the most basic thing. So it will check the versions of the products that you have, and if they have vulnerabilities, it will report them, and then you probably have some kind of patch management process to be able to patch and to apply fixes to the assets. So that would be like the basic thing that everybody has to do. Pen testing would be like once that's established, so a bit more sophisticated and a bit more, you go a bit deeper because you try to really access the systems and try to get advantage on that. And once you have that and your attack surface is more under control, I would go to red teaming or purple teaming exercise to really test the people that is working in your organization and the processes that you have set in place. Which at the end, it's a goal of those like sophisticated engagements. So to me, vulnerability scanners and pen testing are to test technical things, technical controls, and the technical status of the machines. And red teaming or purple teaming are more testing your company processes and the people, the detection and response processes of the security teams.
So on a related but slightly different now, you've mentioned attack surface a couple of times. Are there certain things, the attack surface is expanding, are there certain things that you and your team are finding more challenging today because of what's going on with the attack surface? Any interesting stories there?
So there, what we're seeing after COVID is that the office doesn't exist anymore in most cases, and the office is everywhere. So now, before 2020, you managed to fish somebody working in the headquarters, and it was kind of easy to get access to the rest of the network, and you were there. Now it's slightly more difficult, so you probably need to compromise the VPN, or you need to be able to steal some cloud access tokens to be able to impersonate that person and reach the cloud systems. There's also the cloud is there, so the people have a hybrid environment, so that makes it a bit more challenging. So depending on what you want to attack, before the attack surface was much smaller than it is now. So now there are devices everywhere, people working from anywhere, and it makes it a bit more challenging to jump to the critical assets. But at the end, once you're in, you're in. You get persistence, and you can do the same things that you were doing before. Also, there's each time more security awareness, so the companies are trying to protect themselves better. EDRs and antiviruses have evolved a lot, so it's much more difficult to evade them. So you need to work more on that than before. But at the end, everything is possible. So the people thinking 8 hours per day or 20 hours per day on how to breach you, they will manage eventually. So it's better that they don't look at you, because if they look at you, you will be a target, and they will eventually break your defenses.
Right. It just takes time and energy, right? So earlier you were speaking about the maturity of organizations. So when would they look at getting a pen test? So as the organization works through vulnerability management and some of the other items around maturity, they get to the point where, okay, we're ready for a pen test. So let's say they know that they're ready for a pen test now, and they're looking for a security assessment like that. What are the key items that they should be looking at, and what type of questions should they ask the pen test provider to ensure that they're getting what they need, what they really want out of that engagement?
So to me, the questions, there are questions that the pen tester should ask. So it's to me the planning part of the pen test is like the most important part of it. So you need to define a good scope. So it's impossible to test like the whole network. Even for a pen test or for a red teaming engagement, it's even more important for a red teaming or purple teaming engagement to do that. But during the planning phase, the customer needs to understand what are the limits. So the pen tester should, or the customer should ask the pen tester, what are they going to do without details? What are the assets that they are targeting? What are the goals of the customer? What are the crown jewels in the company? What are the most important systems that they want to protect and that they want to test? If there are any assets that cannot be touched during the pen test, because it's really critical for the business, and if they break it, the business doesn't work anymore. So that should be pretty clear. And even if they don't understand, if the customer, or at least the part of the customer, the white team at the end should understand everything the pen testers or the red teamers will do. So they need to understand the techniques that they will use. They need to explain the teams what are the most important parts of the company, the most critical parts of the company that they want to test and validate. And and also they need to understand the working methodology of the pen testers or red teamers. If they are working on their own and then providing a report, or they will be working together in the process, or if they will be meeting, I don't know, every week to see the progress. So it's to me it's really important in that questioning phase to understand how the pen testers will proceed, what is the information that you're going to get back, and to clarify what are the limits of the test. So it's with that, if they have that clear, also the type of pen test that they want to do, if it's external, if it's internal, if it's cloud, if it includes phishing simulations, if it doesn't. So they need to clarify all that, also the technologies that they want to test. So that would be like the first phase, the most important one for me, and the one that when it finishes, everybody should be happy with the result. So they should feel, the two parties should feel that that everything's okay to start the pen test.
Thank you for that. That makes a lot of sense. And kind of a follow-up to that, everyone's been looking at AI and what that actually means to, for potentially changing the landscape around pen testing and other security services. How do you see where AI things like ChatGPT, AutoGPT, and similar is changing things for pen test engagements, or potentially could actually shift what's being done and how it's being done in the near future?
I think that when we did the survey, the ChatGPT was pretty new, so it's not there yet. But we think it will be really important, especially for phishing, vishing, and all that kind of practices. At the end, it's now with ChatGPT, it's really easy to write an email that is not the Nigerian prince, that story, that something that feels real. And with just a sentence, you can have this Ismail. Some weeks ago, Microsoft said that they have a technology that could replicate the voice with just a recording of 2 seconds, so that for phishing is crazy. So you could be able to call somebody mimicking the voice of somebody else and say whatever you want. So that makes defense more difficult and a priori. So we think that there's something there. I don't know how much it has been exploited until now. There's also some people writing polymorphic malware and code changing dynamically with using ChatGPT. So we're seeing there that there are opportunities for both testing and for the bad guys to do that kind of stuff. And yeah, I think there's something there. I don't know where it will bring us, because it's something that it's starting, but we're already seeing the bad guys using that, and I think it's something that should be mimicked in the pen testing or red teaming engagements too. Because at the end, with these kind of tests, we're trying to simulate what those nefarious actors are trying to do, and if they are using those technologies. So it's something that should be also tested in the security assessments that are done.
Great,
yeah,
thank you.
I'm sure pen testers are playing with it. Like, the first thing that occurred to me, like I think about, like, what are you searching for during a pen test? Like what's the default credentials for a Siemens, XK1000, or just making stuff up. But I'm sure, because it can spit out code. Like I've seen detection engineering use cases where it says, write me code that the YAML for a SIM to detect this kind of attack or something like that, and it just spits it out. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure from a pen testing use case, you can have it spit out some code that you need, like right when you need it. So that could be interesting.
Yeah, also questions that you normally ask to Google. I don't know, if you're doing reconnaissance, the nmap commands are much easier to write with ChatGPT. So you ask, give me a command with nmap that does a scanner of this IP range, being stealth, and just checking this port range, and it does it right away without having to search in cheat sheets or anything. So for that, it can speed up the work a lot.
So, one thing I didn't see, a word I didn't see in here, there's a lot around quantity of pen test, frequency of pen test, stuff like that. I didn't see, and like I said, I didn't get through all of it, but just scanning it, I didn't see anything really around the quality of a pen test. And that kind of goes along with a question we got from, well, I guess maybe it's two different things. So first, a question we got from the audience was kind of around standardizing on findings, on remediation guidance. So, like, are we seeing any trend where, like, obviously if one finding, the recommendation is implement zero trust, and another finding, the recommendation is, make the simple configuration change. How easy is it to sort your findings by, how difficult it is to remediate things? Are you seeing any work to kind of standardize the language around remediation? Like, I know there's a lot of reporting tools, a lot of pen tester tools that have like canned language for this. But how easy is it to, like, say, sort my findings by, how low-hanging fruit, by easy stuff to fix, right?
Yeah. So for that, I think that the easiest ones to solve are vulnerabilities. So if there are findings related to CVEs, normally there's always a patch, and the solution is to patch the machine to update it to the latest version. That would be like the easy to fix ones, but sometimes it's also complicated. So if it's business critical systems, they don't want to stop them to patch them, and they could be with an old version forever, and it will be found every time in a pen test. So that would be something kind of easy. So just updating to the latest version. So that would be like the lowest hanging fruit. Then I would say easy misconfigurations. So if there's something wrong on Active Directory, or you have tools like Bloodhound or others that could give you the attack path that you could follow to go from a user with low privileges to a one with high privileges, and during the pen test you're using those misconfigurations to reach to get the domain controller account, the domain admin account. That would be something pretty easy to solve because at the end you need to cut like the path.
And those are good examples, but I think the question was more around, are you seeing any standardization on consistency of responses? Like maybe one pen tester tells you to fix something one way versus another pen test telling you another way to do it. That's maybe, more complicated or unnecessary even. So just standardization, like between pen testers, like consistency. Like if I get a pen test from one company and a pen test from another, and they have the same findings, like the recommendations for remediation, how close are those going to be to how similar are those going to be?
I think there won't be very different. So what we're saying is that the finding doesn't have many ways to remediate it. Good ones actually, because you could I don't know if there's if they managed to access through a port because there was a vulnerability or whatever, or a misconfiguration, some pen tester could ask you to close a port, but if you need it for your business, you cannot do that. So there should be other options. I don't think that's a good option, but if the team is good, they will. The two good teams with the same findings, I think they would provide the same kind of answers or the remediation paths. At the end, I don't know, a solution like implement zero trust, it's too wide. It's really difficult to implement zero trust. Actually, you can implement in a subset of critical assets, but implementing it in the whole company, it's really complicated.
Yeah, a lot of factors. Before we wrap up the conversation, I want to make sure we get to like the most interesting bits of the report. To you, is there anything else from the report that you thought was really interesting that we haven't talked about yet?
There's something that we're seeing, and I think there's one fact that is fun in the report that I don't think it's I don't know if the question was not too well understood, or there was like a misunderstanding on the how often does your organization pen test. So there's like an 8%, 16% actually of the organizations doing daily or weekly pen tests. So that to me it's virtually impossible.
It's going to be like an automated tool, right?
Yeah, it should be like an automated tool, and to me that's not pen testing. It's breach and attack simulation or whatever.
Right.
Other thing like that. The pen test, it has a human factor that you cannot, and a human need, and they need to take decisions. It takes time to do a pen test. So doing a pen test daily or even weekly is virtually impossible. So we had like a couple of theories here. So one is that they are not doing pen testing, some of them, and the other option could be that they are constantly doing pen testing in the company, but like changing the assets they are pen testing. So there's a pen testing team working every day, basically doing pen testing on different assets. So they are busy during the whole year doing pen tests every day. So that one, maybe we need to clarify it for next year, because I don't know if we have the correct answer.
Yeah, so if I can make a suggestion, and this is, if you didn't have anything to bring up, this is exactly what I was planning on bringing up, because continuous pen testing has been a term thrown around, and I have seen some commercial offerings where the idea is that you do, there's a few companies out there, I forget what they call it, but it's based on attack surface management, where you have an automated tool looking for things that are interesting. So the automated piece is finding these kind of nuggets, without wasting anybody's time. And when they find something that looks interesting, they hand it off to a human. And it's kind of like they're just pen testing that. It's like a mini pen test, basically, on this one thing that's discovered. And just whenever those things pop up, and this is an external firm that you would hire to just do this year round. And they just go pen test that one thing, and they write up that one thing, that one finding, if it is a concern. And I thought that was kind of an interesting way. Like, I think it's still more expensive than just like a point in time pen test, but not significantly more expensive. Like they have it priced to where companies can afford to hire a company to do this, year round.
Yeah, it's something that it's interesting. At the end, it's like an extended vulnerability scanner, I would say. So the vulnerability scanner is for the internal network, is doing exactly that. So it's looking for things that are not properly configured or properly updated in the internal network. And this attack surface management, it's like more holistic, I would say. So it's testing all your external surface, and especially web applications or ports that you have open to the wide. And when it finds something, it gives you an alert, and it allows to do a deeper analysis. So that's also an interesting tool, and another complement to pen testing gigs or to red teaming gigs.
Yeah, so my suggestion for this one, you were referring to figure number 9 with the pen testing frequency, is maybe next year, I think it would be interesting to also know for each of those what portion is external versus internal testing.
Yeah, so probably we can mix the one that we have in slide 8, I think it is. Yeah, 8, where we're asking about against what infrastructure do you regularly conduct pen testing, if it's external, internal, cloud. So probably we can mix it with that one, and understand which part of the.
I meant internal team versus external vendor.
Okay, so third parties is once.
Yeah. But yeah, what you said too, right? like both of those, I think, would be interesting to run up against, like how frequently you're doing it. So maybe that's 3 different questions. What's your pen testing frequency for internal team versus external team or external firm, and also, like ASM stuff, like external scanning versus, or external pen testing versus internal assets, I guess is the better way to say it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff. Well, now I'm looking forward to next year's already.
Yeah, we'll just have to wait a year, but it passes really fast. So last year we were here presenting it, and next year came really fast with ChatGPT and a lot of new things that we'll have to see how they evolve during the next year, and we'll probably have something related to that, or something even newer that pops up during the next month. That could be interesting to highlight.
Things are moving so fast.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, thank you so much, Pablo, for joining us on Enterprise Security Weekly today. We will definitely see you again in the near future, and probably again for the next version of this report.
Thank you. So it was a pleasure to be here as usual. Thank you.
Make sure you visit securityweekly.com/Fortra to learn more. There is a link there where you can grab this report and you can comb through it yourself at your leisure. And stay tuned. When we come back, we're going to talk compliance automation with Travis Howerton from RegScale. When organizations face poor web performance, challenges building modern applications at scale, or need to reduce operational and development costs, they turn to Fastly. Fastly's distributed edge network means your business can unleash its growth potential without worrying about scaling your infrastructure, whether for growth of users, transaction volume, or geographic expansion. Get the speed, security, and edge cloud innovation you need to deliver profitable and engaging experiences. Visit securityweekly.com/Fastly for more information or to speak to an expert. Welcome back to Enterprise Security Weekly. Security Weekly listeners save $100 on their RSA 2023 conference full pass. RSA conference will take place April 24th through 27th in San Francisco and on demand. To register using our discount code, please visit securityweekly.com/RSAC 2023 and use the code 53UCyber. That's 53, the letter U, Cyber. We hope to see you there. Travis Howerton joins us today to talk about the rise of RegOps, the need for compliance automation. As co-founder and chief technology officer of RegScale, Travis Howerton is responsible for the product development and R&D of RegScale's continuous compliance automation platform. Before joining the RegScale team, I'm not going to read your whole bio, but yeah, you've done a lot of great stuff here. Bechtel, the consolidated nuclear security, bunch of stuff out at Oak Ridge, ORNL. Stuff we're very familiar with here in East Tennessee. Knoxville's right next to Oak Ridge. We got Y12 out there. And you've done the round through DOE and a bunch of these places. Very interesting background, Travis.
Well, thank you. I've had the privilege of getting to serve my country in a variety of roles over 20 plus years in the Department of Energy and the Nuclear Weapons Program, from Y12 to NNSA headquarters to Oak Ridge National Lab. And it was a wonderful experience for the most part, with maybe the compliance pieces of that being the least enjoyable bits. Which was then the impetus for the startup at RegScale and how we got to here.
You saw some room for improvement.
Well, that might be an understatement. It's one of those, if we locked you in a room with a group of 10 other people and asked you to design the most inefficient way to audit your security program and let you outbrief, I doubt you could come up with a more inefficient one than how the government and many highly regulated organizations do it today. We create huge Word documents and Excel spreadsheets that are out of date the moment that they're written. We then pretend that they're up to date until the audits come. Then we send the armies of people to go mad, scramble, try to update it. And it's just a losing battle as systems become more ephemeral. Everything goes to the cloud. It's just every part of the design of it is inefficient. And so we thought somebody ought to do something about this, because it's become the new long pole in the tent. It is the compliance wickets. The DevOps stuff has made infrastructure fast. Everything's code except for compliance. And we wanted to take our own unique spin on trying to solve that problem, so that compliance is something we can talk about again, because today it's Voldemort. It's thee who shall not be named. If you want to kill the party at a bar, just start talking compliance and audits, and nobody will want to be your friend. And so we just thought we'd take a different take on it to make it more effective, more efficient, more automated, and in line with sort of commercial practices for how the rest of security works.
Right. And you mentioned some of those obvious places where efficiencies can be gained. But let's maybe name out some of those, like clearly where you store the reporting, whatever you're handing to the auditor, that can be a living document, right? Like that can be something that's updated in real time. But the other big spot that occurs to me is evidence collection. A lot of that can be just fully automated. Nobody needs to be manually taking screenshots of things. What else is there that just struck you as like obvious opportunities for efficiency gains?
Yeah, there were several there. Evidence is an obvious one. Everybody has a breadth of continuous monitoring tools. And so it doesn't matter what your stack is. Everybody picks different tools, tunes them different ways, but there's heavy investment in monitoring networks and assets and other things. So collecting evidence with automation, machine-to-machine communication. We're built on top of the Open Security Controls Assessment Language, or OSCAL. Had the privilege of learning where Dr. Iorga at NIST was going there, and thought we've got to get on that bandwagon and train. So we built our whole stack on compliance as code, with the idea that your continuous monitoring could just attest to the controls, auto-update evidence with machine-to-machine communications. Then we started looking at other things like maintaining your asset inventory, keeping it always up to date, automating ticketing for vulnerabilities and patching, and even for third-party dependencies inside of CI/CD pipelines. All these things have rich telemetry. And so we're not the scanner. We are not the fixer of things. What we do is we try to sit in the middle of all of those, bring the data you already have, and make always on-demand, audit-ready, documentation-ready. So we just get rid of all the manual labor gopher tasks that we do with humans and try to make it as seamless as possible. And that was sort of the first foray into this space. And where we're starting to go now is, now that we have all this rich data, now that we have it in a machine-readable format, how can we apply AI and ML to make more automated decisions, to help with control authoring, to help with POAM risk assessments, and all the things that go into cyber compliance today? We think there's some killer use cases for AI ML. So basically what we're trying to do is just look at everywhere you can automate and let humans do what they're great at, which is interpret the data, make risk-based decisions, try to protect the company and its assets, and not be the gophers that pull evidence logs, that update inventory spreadsheets, that have to write 400-page plans by hand. And so that's been our focus. And we think we're in the very early stages of what we can automate, where we're automating 30 to 50% of a lot of the compliance checks that people are doing today. But we think you could probably get it closer to 80+% as a function of time and as we continue to invest in our product roadmap.
I guess my next question, as a company in this space, because you're changing the way things have been done, since there were spreadsheets and Word documents up until now, how much pushback do you get at all the different levels? Like, I imagine there's the pushback during the sales process, but mostly I would think people coming to you or have already seen the light and want compliance activities to suck less.
Yep.
But then they're going to run into issues, I imagine, internally, where there's pushback on changing the way things are done. And then I think the third level there are the auditors. Like how much of this can they, are auditors going to give them pushback, say, no, it needs to be in this format, or, this has to be a screenshot, or, I'm sure there's some silly stuff there that's just going to take, time to kind of whittle them down and get them towards acceptance.
Yeah. And I would say the resistance varies by level, from no resistance, they're France, they wave the white flag as soon as they see a tank, all the way up to sort of active war, depending on who you're talking to. And in the DevSecOps world, cyber engineering, no resistance. They hate dealing with auditors. They hate dealing with data calls and repetitive tasks. And so if there's a way to script this, engineer it, and never have to do it again, it falls right into the DevOps mindset. In addition, mission owners who are trying to bring a product to market, or who are in the DoD trying to compete with other global superpowers, we're getting laughed at by other countries who don't have to go through all this stuff, and they're able to do things much faster and cheaper than we can. And we stand in our own way. And it's well-intentioned stuff when you look at the regulations, but the cost and the time associated with getting through those wickets is severe. And then when you get to auditors, like I would argue they're never going to change on some of this stuff. And so even though we're machine readable, what we're able to do is take that machine representation of an audit package, wrap it into our mega API, and then we transform it. And so you want a CMMC package for DoD, we can do that. You want a FedRAMP package, we can do that. You want a SOC 2 package, we can transform it into the Word and Excel documents they want on demand while still taking advantage of all the documentation. So one of the things we thought is if we could give them real time and it's always available, auditors would love it. That was a horrible planning assumption and sort of the early stages of RegScale. And what we've done instead is worked on transformations where we can take data from anywhere, we can get it into a common compliance as code standard, and then we can output it into any format they want to see, so that you don't have to have those wars about culture change and organizational change management. From their perspective, they get the same thing they've always gotten. From the DevOps world, they didn't have to deal with it at all. And I think that's where the clear win is that we're seeing in the market.
So you mentioned automating somewhere like 20, 30%. You want to get up to 80%. Do you have any stats on just like labor hours, like how much time you're able to save some companies?
Yeah, it depends on use case, but we're seeing anywhere from sort of 20 to 70% savings, depending on what they were trying to do manually and sort of how adept they are at DevOps and automation and scripting. So somewhat variable by standard, but more variable by customer sophistication and sort of what they want to automate and can afford to automate. And the bigger the organization is, the bigger those savings get. So 20% doesn't sound like a lot unless you're the Department of Defense or you're the Department of Homeland Security. And then that's real money at scale. And so it varies wildly by customer. We're also building out a pre-built set of integrations that just work out of the box. We work with 28 commercial tools today. We hope to be up to 50 to 100 by the end of the year. And so we're just going to keep adding to where more and more you just give us your stack. We plug into the center of it. We kind of like the early models of Splunk where everything just worked with it. There was an app for everything in Splunk. We want to be the same thing for compliance where you just drop it in. We pull data from wherever you have it. We can output in any framework you have. And compliance and being audit ready becomes a low risk, super affordable, easy to do sort of proposition versus the career-ending, expensive nightmare that it is today.
So the big four, PwC, E&Y, all those folks, how much is that looking like competition, or are they customers, or are they both? How concerned are you about the big audit firms from a market perspective?
Yeah, I think to some degree, we've talked to those folks. We're going to have trouble getting folks like that interested in what we do or in some of the big SIs in government, because if you automate a lot of this manual work, then nobody can sell those butts in seats at high rates to the government. And so it's a disruption, right, to some of that. At the same time, I don't think this is an area where it's going to this automation is going to result in big layoffs, because you always want people to make risk-based decisions. You want a human doing that and factoring in a whole bunch of things. We just make it easier for them to have data. And my experience over my career is I've never been in an org where compliance and audit was fully staffed, because as soon as people get a chance to get out, they do. It's one of those pay your dues. You do it for a while, but as soon as I can hop to the incident response team or something that's a sexier part of cyber, you're out. And so I think this is an area where you can get people to full capacity without needing all the bodies, because the bodies don't exist in our labor market. There's way more need than there are way more jobs than there are people to staff them. So I think this is an area that helps get people closer to capacity for automating and being compliant and reducing risk without the need to staff expensive bodies that are hard to find.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of like talking about AI. Like it doesn't necessarily take everybody's jobs away, but it definitely changes them, and you have to learn how to incorporate this stuff within it. Which, since I brought it up, are you guys playing with like I imagine the LLM AI, particularly the stuff where you can just generate text, which compliance loves lots and lots of text.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Talk a bit about how you see, these big changes. It seems like almost every market has been changed since OpenAI made ChatGPT open to the public and went to 100 million users in 2 months. Fastest growing application in the history of software. How are you guys looking at incorporating that into what you've already got?
Yeah, I think any software company that's not thinking about the AI ML disruption that's happening, we just took a quantum leap forward. I think we're at the start of the AI wars of AI-based offense, AI-based defense, and at RegScale AI-based compliance. So some of that will be automated control authoring. There's some low-hanging fruit sort of things. There's all sorts of things we can do around benchmarking and other things that I think can really push the needle in the art of the possible. Some of those things not quite ready to talk about in a public forum. There's some secret sauce, some things we may patent or IP we might protect, but this is an area that's as ripe for disruption as there is. It's an area that hasn't really evolved much since 1995 when Word and Excel first dropped on the world and went mainstream. Most compliance shops, even in billion-dollar organizations, still are powered by a lot of that same technology. And so we think this rise of IoT, machines talking to machines, continuous monitoring, where everybody takes cyber seriously nowadays, it's a board-level issue. There's a lot of data. So it's a data-rich thing. We just got to knock down some of these process silos, the same way that DevOps did to traditional sysadmins and kind of disrupted the way that that's done. I think AI is going to disrupt compliance greatly and in a good way. Because I don't think I've never met a customer yet where he said, what do you love about your compliance shop and your RMF and your ATO and those sorts of things. We've never had anyone like, man, I love it. It's so efficient. It's so enjoyable to do. It's always, man, I hate this. I don't even want to talk about it. It's this thing I have to do. And if I don't do it, I might get fired, but it's low value, high expense. And I think AI is going to turn that on its head where it's low cost, high value, which is where it should be.
And it boggles my, I think for a lot of people that are kind of down on AI and getting worked up over jobs being replaced and stuff like that, like you have to put it in the right context, right? Like a lot of this stuff, I think, and the reason I get so excited about it is it's replacing work that nobody wants to do. Like you said, the reason people don't stick around in a lot of these roles for a while, the joke used to be back in the day when I was a PCI QSA, was that anybody who lasted more than 2 years as a PCI QSA was a unicorn because it was just soul-sucking work. Just
exactly.
Putting together the rock, gathering all the evidence, everything was going to be in Excel and just like a folder structure. And you had a folder structure for 1.1, 1.1.1. And you're manually building this folder structure. And I remember the early attempts to automate it were basically just putting that same folder structure and that same spreadsheet into a web app. And it was even slower. It was even slower than using Excel. So the first attempts at this went backwards, not forwards. I remember telling our management, hey, if you want me to use this PCI portal and put all the evidence in here, it took like 5 seconds to upload each bit of evidence, and I had 1,000 pieces of evidence. I was like, you're going to have to add at least 20 hours to every engagement. This is going to cost you that much more.
Yeah, it's insane. Sort of, I'll trade you sort of quips there. Mine, when I was in the nuclear weapons program, every time I get one of these huge system security plans, like they weren't little, they weren't light reading for the weekend. Like they'll stop a door. They're these really thick volumes you've got to read. And I'd always joke they hired me to lead, not to read. Right. And it's just like, this is just too much. And everybody knows like this probably isn't even true shortly after it's created because systems are dynamic. And if you look at where the industry's going, everything will be cloud-based, ephemeral, AI-driven. And this idea you're going to document it in static Word documents, spreadsheets, SharePoint lists, doesn't matter how you do it, legacy GRC tools. the processes won't survive the future. They can't. And most of the tools that were built, as you mentioned, were just light web portals that were less efficient than Word was at doing the same thing. And so they can't scale. They weren't designed for this kind of world. And so we thought there's a need to re-architect how you think about it and then rethink the problem fundamentally, where you start with compliance as code, you wrap it in APIs, and everything's machine to machine, and you output what the auditors need with the least amount of human intervention possible. So those are sort of the design standards and how we think through the problem at RegScale.
Right. Katie?
I do. That's a good segue, actually. I have a couple of questions. My first one is about the market. There seem to be just a slew of companies who are trying to do automated compliance. They've come out in the last few years, and so you're in a pretty busy space which both validates it but also makes it really hard. So can you tell us what really makes RegScale different and easier? You said you're having a lot of success with DevOps, so maybe you could just help us all understand, what is that differentiator? What is the thing that makes you so successful?
Yeah, and so I think I describe it as sort of a three bears problem is the simplest analogy. There's lots of competitors we're seeing. That we aren't the only one with this idea, and nobody's ever going to come tell you that Travis is one of the smartest people in the world. It's not a unique idea. It's not a unique idea that we had. I think we just had a differentiated way we came at it. And so we saw a lot of SaaS tools that were starting to go at this space, but they don't have a lot of the certs that you need to host sensitive customer data. They support one framework or another. And then at the high end, you had your ServiceNows and Archers of the world, the legacy GRCs, where if you want to build something bespoke that is really complicated, they're a platform for building platforms. And so we don't do either one of those things. What we do is kind of sit in the middle. Everything's pre-built. You can think of it like an ERP for compliance. Everything's pre-built on best practices. It's up and running in seconds. It can deploy anywhere. So we can deploy in classified networks and isolated energy system, ICS networks, all the way through our SaaS version that we host. We can deploy anywhere. It's up in minutes. You can be configured in hours and up and running. And so what we tried to do was get 80% of what the big boys in this space could do at 20% of the time and money. And then everything be API driven and compliance as code. That's where we think the sweet spot is. And there are people who do parts of what we do for sure. There are things they're doing that we can't do. But I think that's our sweet spot. We thought there was a spot in the middle where most people don't want to pay millions of dollars for a GRC. They don't want to take years to get the value, and they can't use these lightweight SaaS tools and highly regulated. And that was sort of the gap in the market we saw, is somebody needs to step in and find something that works out of the box, has a great user experience, fully automated, saves money, and is up and running and easy to use. And so that was sort of the niche we walked into. But I don't disagree with you at all that there are many competitors and others doing similar things in this space, but that's kind of our niche.
That's great. And in terms of the regulations and the audits themselves, they're changing so frequently. How do you keep up? How do you help your clients keep up?
Yep,
good question.
Absolutely. So we've got the ability, we call it Transformer. You can think of it just like the movie or the cartoons, where you can map frameworks to one another and it will automatically generate different versions of the document for different auditors while reusing evidence. So we focus really heavily on reuse. We're also talking to partners who are really good in this space, way better than we're ever going to be. We're not trying to be a regulatory clearinghouse for compliance. So we'll partner with folks like the Unified Controls Framework, UCF, to bring in some of the regulatory change management, keep things up to date for them in real time through that integration. And that'll be, a 29th integration on top of the 28 we have. So there's a lot like that we just continue to build as we grow. But we're going to count on others who focus in that area. So there are folks who do change management. There's people who do scanning tools. There's people who do CI/CD tools. We just want to sit in the middle and make the audit part seamless as possible.
So going back to what you're talking about making it seamless, and my anecdote about the early compliance portals, that were badly designed. I think a lot of it really does go around the evidence. I actually helped a friend of mine who has a small consulting company who built a product, who tried to build one of these tools that didn't suffer the same issues. And we found the key was really around compliance collection. The problem with those early portals was that they started after they assumed you already had all the evidence. And that was the really gnarly, painful part, where you're, looking over people's shoulders and asking for screenshots and files, and then you forget something and have to go back and ask for it later, and they're coming in via email and all kinds of non-ideal, maybe not the most secure methods. And so you actually have a CLI interface, a command line interface for evidence collection, right?
We do. And so the CLI, the idea of RegOps is bringing the principles of DevOps to compliance. And most of the DevOps tools have a command line interface of some sort where you can automate around it. And so all those integrations I mentioned that plug into your CI/CD, that plug into your scanners, they're all CLI driven. So you attach it to some sort of orchestrator, whether that's a cron job, a serverless function, whatever it may be. And you tell it how often you want to pull your evidence, what you want to do with it, kind of what your SLAs are. It will automatically update your inventory, your issues. It'll assign tickets in your ITIL tool like a Jira or a ServiceNow. And it keeps all that ticked and tied with automation. And so everything that we can automate, we try to drive through that CLI interface. So that RegScale for DevOps is a growing use case for us. So plug it into software factories. The move to software bill of materials, we can automatically update your assets in their SBOMs as things are pushed on every push, and keep that up to date in your compliance paperwork. So when the next Log4j drops, you can see exactly which software you have that's running it, when it was introduced, and gauge your risk exposure rapidly. Things that are really hard to do today, we think with this DevOps for compliance become trivial exercises in the future.
Right. How involved do you get with the people making the regulations? I know a lot of compliance and regulations have open periods where you can contribute to questions. They've got working groups and things like that. Do you guys get really involved in that kind of stuff to maybe encourage them to make it easier to automate some of these things?
Yeah. Lightly, we try to influence it, but I wouldn't describe us as a heavy into the regulatory side of it. Like if I could be king for a day and have an ask, I'd quit making it Oprah, where everybody gets a compliance framework. Like everybody shows up, you get a compliance framework, and you get a compliance framework. And all these poor companies have to comply with all of them, and they're largely 90% redundant across them. So like consolidation of frameworks, I think is the thing the industry needs the most. And then if you consolidate and wrap automation around it, then you've got an end-to-end solution that's cost effective, gets a better result, and has a lot less pain and frustration in it than the current process does.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah. Anything else we haven't touched on that you think is kind of central, to this story, to how you're doing what you're doing?
Yeah, I think the one thing I always like to say is like, there's nothing anybody accomplishes by themselves. So there's a whole team of people at RegScale that are, contributing to this DevOps, RegOps movement. But also Dr. Aorga at NIST and OSCAL are foundational for us. We really built on their thought leadership. It really was the genesis for this product. And then we're working with partners like Wiz that are really pushing the boundaries of what you can do with checks at scale in the cloud and other tools. And so it's really an ecosystem play. And so while we talked a bit about RegOps, we talked a bit about RegScale, it's an ecosystem coming together around solving this problem. That's where the true value lies. And as you all mentioned, that we're not the only ones in this space. It's a big market. There's room for lots of us. You may like their take better than ours or ours better than theirs, but the ecosystem to working together on the problem, I think, is what will move the industry forward.
Awesome. Well, Travis, thank you so much for joining us on Enterprise Security Weekly today.
Thanks for having us. We appreciate the opportunity, and it's always a pleasure to see you guys.
All right. Talk to you soon. And we'll be back right back in a few moments with the weekly enterprise news. Do the words free time or relaxation sound foreign to you? Perhaps you've been stuck in the office too long, battling cyber threats or worrying about the next strain of ransomware. Let Sophos help provide peace of mind 24/7, 365 with cybersecurity delivered as a service. Because we want you to get back to your weekends, family dinners, and everything in between. And you'll get there with Sophos. Visit securityweekly.com/Sophos to learn more.
Application Security Weekly delivers interviews and news from the worlds of AppSec, DevOps, and all the other ways people find and fix software flaws. Join us as we explore how the latest news highlights modern security practices or reminds us of the missing ones. We also bring insights from interviews on topics from training to threat modeling, from open source tools to cloud-native techniques. Plus, an occasional reference from new wave to synthwave. Find us at securityweekly.com/subscribe or look for Application Security Weekly wherever you pick your podcasts.
Welcome back to Enterprise Security Weekly. As a member of the Security Weekly community, we are pleased to offer you 20% off your InfoSec World 2023 tickets. Join a community of over 2,000 security professionals and innovators at InfoSec World on September 25th through 27th at Disney's Coronado Springs Resort. Experience world-class learning and networking through enlightening keynotes, informative panel discussions, interactive breakout sessions, hands-on workshops, and more. Register today at securityweekly.com/InfoSec World 2023 using code ISW23-SecWeek20. Now let's get to the Enterprise Security Weekly news. Welcome, Tyler. Tyler has joined us. We got the full crew here today, and we've got a full docket of news stories to chat about.
What's going on, Adrian? How you been?
Good, good. How have you been? As busy as me? Busier?
More so.
Yeah, both very busy. A lot of new companies here. Honestly, all the ones marked as new companies are also fundings, but they're like tiny fundings. They're like what is the? I'm blanking on the startup fund, the accelerator.
VC.
Gives you $500K.
Oh.
Was it YC?
I have no idea.
Y Combinator?
Y Combinator, YC, that's a common one, yes. Is Y Combinator pumping out cyber companies now?
Yes.
Wow.
Let me see. Because I think 4 of these came. I'll look it up while we chat. But I think like 4 of these new companies all came with the same amount of funding out of the same accelerator, and I want to say it was. Might be remembering different. I haven't slept enough, but a ton of new companies here. Like these are all just like fresh out of an accelerator. Drip7, DefenseX, Bliss, EdgeBit, all these from like 5 through 10 here. These are all, very early stage seed funding security startups.
According to Crunchbase, our friends Drip7 were invested by Beta Boom. Is that the accelerator?
Oh,
I've never heard of Beta Boom.
Either.
Yeah. Spokane, Washington. Drip7, if we're going to play the game of making fun of names chosen by companies, Drip7 just sounds really, really bad. I'm sorry. I don't particularly care for the name. Although my 17-year-old son would love it because he loves to say, he comes downstairs and he says, "Hey, Dad, I got drip today." And that apparently that means he's dressed well.
Yeah, that's, I know. I've got teenagers.
Yeah, I had no idea that meant that, but maybe that's where it comes from. Maybe these are some very young founders, 16, 17-year-old founders, and they're Drip7. I don't know.
We talked about dope security the other day, right?
We did. Yep. Hey, but you know what? We've been making fun of no-name security for years, thinking it was, and redacted. And look at them. No-name's killing it.
Yeah. One of them.
Apparently, you don't have to have a really good name to be a really good cyber company.
Yeah, I mean, Thycotic did pretty well, despite having the absolute worst name of all time. That
sounds like a disease.
Every time I have to say it, it causes me physical pain. Yeah, it's Y Combinator. Pulled up the source here. ZeroPass, Bliss, EdgeBit, Escape, which I didn't include, and Infisical are all just came out of Y Combinator. 5 of them.
So it's interesting that they're launching right now. I mean, obviously with RSA coming up, this makes a lot of sense. You know, we're having the big announcement week in about a week and a half, but you know, it's kind of nice to see some new companies after we've shuttered a few.
Yeah. Well, and one of my stories here is talking about how, you know, there's 401 companies, I think, at it's number 31, 401 vendors, and I'm kind of thinking like I wonder how many of those booths might be empty because maybe the burn is too high to send a whole team there, or they got acquired. You know, they had some kind of a fire sale. But I mean, it's fairly normal to go to RSA, walk the expo floor, and see some empty booths that basically just have a sign that says, you know, we've relocated because we got acquired. We're now at the whoever acquired us. It has a much larger, more posh booth, so it didn't make sense for them to have 2 booths there.
Yeah, the relocation due to acquisition is one thing, like putting up the sign that says we've moved over to the Palo Alto booth because of acquisition. But the funny thing would just be going over there for the empty ones and just putting tombstones on the table. Just
that would be mean. I mean, everybody remembers I think who was going to RSA, who has been to a lot of them, remembers the year Norris sponsored the lanyards at RSA, and of course we're not there.
Yeah. No. Brand recognition, regardless of whether they were there or not. You remember how many years later?
Yeah, exactly. And I think the silliest one I've seen was Elastica got not one of the smallest, but like a mid-sized booth. And the only thing there was a Ducati. It was a bright red Ducati.
Just a bike.
And like the information on how you could win it. But that was it. They just paid for a booth to put a fast motorcycle there and have a contest to win it.
Well, yeah, again, is this some kind of new guerrilla tactic that we could be seeing? Because again, how many years have you've known about that? Like, you remember that, just a motorcycle sitting there. You remember it.
It was different. It didn't look like anything else, that's for sure.
No news is good news.
Maybe the companies getting these names were thinking the same thing.
You remember who does the gimmicky things, and a lot of the time you just remember the gimmick.
I don't remember anything usually, but that's because I'm old.
What were you saying, Sean?
I was saying maybe some of these company names are being generated by a random name or word generator, and they want names that are very unique, that people, it sounds like a word, but it's not a word, and maybe that's a way that people will remember them. Like in physical.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want anything that people struggle too much to be able to say.
You know, I sit here and I poke fun at these week over week with you, Adrian. We sit here and we poke fun at the names of these companies. But put yourselves in the shoes of a founder. In today's world, where so many single words, like everything is taken. Like, I wouldn't even know where to begin to name a company. As a matter of fact, I'll even throw myself under the bus. I once tried to start a company with the name of Bink, B-I-N-K, Bink. Dumb name, dumbest name ever. But at the moment, it sounded good.
I mean, none of these are terrible. Drip 7, Defense X, Bliss with a Y instead of an I, EdgeBit. Infisical is the only one where I'm like, I'm going to struggle to spell that, and I struggled for a moment to say it. And then ZeroPass is all about passwordless, so that totally makes sense. It's the number 0 and then pass. Super simple.
So Katie will agree with me on this.
Tyler
I'm about to speak. I've cut her off like 3 times now, and she's going to agree with me that you can't put a Y in place of an I, or a Y in place of an I, and then go tell people you work for Bliss. They'll never find your company. It's just, that's like marketing 101. Never do those goofy, weird spellings.
That's not even my issue. BLYSS. is predominant. Like, there are so many other companies spelled BLYSS, so many of them, and most of them have nothing to do with technology. So that, that's because if somebody just types Bliss into their search engine, you're going to come up with 10 things before you come up with this company. I actually don't mind in physical because it's sort of like invisible and they're doing secret ops, and like I sort of get it. I know, Tyler, you're shaking your head like,
It's the PH versus the F.
I would just prefer something like that than something that can so easily be confused with 20 other companies.
Am I the only one that have to look up homomorphic encryption?
No. Yeah. Well, I've been hearing about it for a long time from back in the CAS days. But
But before we get onto the actual meat of any of these, because clearly we're spending 10 minutes dissecting the naming of them, which has nothing to do with the themselves. But if you think about it, Drip 7 I'll take, although the 7, the number versus the non-number, okay, whatever. You can make an argument for that. EdgeBit I like. In physical, PHY versus the F, like, I don't know, too confusing to me versus the FI, so that's a no. Bliss is a no. And Defense X, they left an E out. People can't spell it.
It's cool.
I just noticed that.
It makes it cooler.
So I think, Adrian, you were about to take us down the actual meat of discussing these as opposed to ripping up names.
Well, Tyler, when you have to buy a vowel, you drop an extra E.
I'd like to buy a vowel, please, Adrian.
I was actually going to continue to circle this. I was going to bring up the episode. If you remember the episode when I think it took us like 5 minutes to find the company because we ran into a name collision in real time on the show. And we had two companies doing the same exact thing that did completely different things in security. Do you remember what that name was? Because I remember one of them was like an Irish email security play, or they were somewhere in the UK or in Ireland, somewhere in that region. And then the other one was a completely different company that had a completely different product in a different market. But I forget the name of them now.
Yeah,
so
I don't.
Number 10 here, are we OPass or Zero Pass?
Zero Pass.
It's got Zero Pass. But then you get into the number name thing. Is it ZERO or the number?
You're right.
Right. So I don't like that one either. You know, I saw a tweet. Actually. I think might have been first thing this morning. I wish I could remember the whole tweet because they had a list of about 5 or 6 companies that apparently the last 2 years has been the era of big companies renaming themselves to completely crappy SEO terms. Google is now Alphabet. Duh. Facebook is now Meta, duh. Like they ran down like 10 different terms that was like, if you Google this, you get 1,000 different collisions. It was the dumbest idea ever, but yet it seemed to be the hotness last year. What's that, eh?
Twitter is now a subsidiary of X Incorporated.
Yep, there's another one. Yep. Because that's Googleable.
Wait, X Incorporated.
Yeah.
Yep. That was Elon Musk's first startup. The one that eventually turned into PayPal, I think. So I think that's the reason he brought. Like I assume he still owned it. Like, can you have single character domain names?
I don't think you can buy them anymore, but I'm sure you can.
X.com.
Well, you might be able to buy them off of someone for a lot of money.
Yeah, X.com just puts an X on the screen.
Yeah.
And not even a good X. It's literally like a small, like 11-point font X in the corner.
And it's not HTTPS.
Is there a Praetorian symbol in the bottom right?
Oh, yeah.
So, are we going to actually talk about anything of substance?
Talk about what some of these companies do. So, you know, the one the company I work for, Valence, is in the RSA Innovation Sandbox, and there's a homomorphic encryption play there too. I'm blanking on their name. I know it starts with a Z, but yeah, Bliss also like I don't know. There was another one. I forget what year it was, Innovation Sandbox, but the judges just absolutely tore them apart. I want to say it was 2019. And basically the judges were like saying, we're pretty sure this is a scam. Convince us homomorphic encryption is not a scam. Because the idea is like you can use the data, search the data without unencrypting it.
Yeah.
And it's not, yeah.
There's nothing about homomorphic encryption. I've been hearing about homomorphic encryption since I was an actual analyst at Forrester, dating back to 2012 timeframe, so over a decade now. And the reality is every single one of them, even if I gave them credit for being real, even if like the non-math nerd, crypto nerd, cyber guy in me goes, all right, let's assume you did figure this out and you can really do it well. Who cares? Nobody buys it. Like, I have yet to be convinced that homomorphic encryption as a differentiator actually matters in market.
And that was what the judges were saying. They were saying, if this is real, everybody would be doing it.
Yeah, but like the interesting thing, nobody's doing it. Yeah, but I'm slightly different discussion on it, Adrian. What I'm saying is, if it's real, everybody wouldn't be doing it. And the reason they wouldn't be doing it is because nobody cares. It really doesn't make a lick of difference to most enterprises and companies. CISOs don't sit down and go, oh, I wish all of my data was searchable and encrypted at the same time. They just don't, because they know it's not a reality. And maybe that's the point that the judges were trying to make. We're saying, hey, if this could actually happen, people would care. I don't know.
Problem.
But practically, from an attacker perspective, is it that much of a difference if the data is encrypted in the database and then decrypted in memory to be worked with, or the homomorphic encryption where it stays encrypted, but it's still being worked with somewhere in memory? Like, practically, is there any real difference?
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Sean. So if we think about homomorphic encryption as the ability to search, look through, analyze whatever encrypted data to get out the nuggets that you need, okay, well, maybe there's some utility there when you say things like, does object X exist in database? Maybe that question becomes valuable. But if you're trying to actually work with any reasonable sized chunks of data, you have to eventually decrypt it to work with it, right? Beyond, the lookup capability is interesting, but the actual read-write capability, you're still going to be using clear text at some point. Adrian, you had the furrowed brow look. Was that for our discussion or some other news you're looking at?
I'm just reading. So the company I was talking about was Zama, and I'm looking for something that's going to convince me on their website, and you saw the expression that I made. Not finding.
So I used to think there were only a handful of Z names out there, but I have a daughter that is really into zebras, and she keeps getting these stuffed zebra little friends, and every one of them has a different Z name, and I think she has like 15 to 20 of them now, and they all have different names, and they all sound alike. ZB, ZD, Z, Zadra. So maybe she could. There probably is. She could probably be a consultant to create new company names at some point in the future. So bright future ad for her.
All right. So yeah, some of these other ones. Zero Pass. I'm behind. I think a passwordless feature is possible. I think we've seen enough to see that it is possible. So, I'm excited to see companies trying to push that forward. Aside from that, I don't have a whole lot to say about it. The Defense X, I'm boggled by another remote web browser. Like, they could have been competing with like the Island and Talon, which basically is like a reimagining of the browser for the enterprise. But this is streaming a browser. Basically, Citrix publish, Chrome and run it from the cloud. I don't get it. I mean, it's only ever been niche. Maybe that niche hasn't been filled by the other 14 companies that have done this. I don't know.
But it's zero trust for the web browser.
Shut your mouth.
Now you just lost Tyler.
I have bingo. I now have bingo.
He's going to close his webcam and leave.
Foolproof.
I'm happy. I made Tyler laugh 3 times, so I'm happy.
See, Here's the thing. This is the best about, for those of you that are listening and can't see the video and are just on audio. We've recently switched over to using a 3 or 4 up screen. I laugh all the time at you folks. You just can't see it. I'm always in the background.
No, you're laughing at us, not with us.
Oh,
I don't care. A laugh's a laugh. I'm good for that.
yeah. Comedian at heart. Any laugh, I'll take it. Yeah, I mean, I don't really. None of the rest of these are interesting enough to me to continue talking about. But
jump to the good one. Jump to 12A.
To 12.
Your favorite topic.
Yes, it is. I can't see enough of it.
SEMGREP? You're wanting to talk about SEMGREP?
Oh, not SEMGREP. Yes, it's the one I want to talk about, but that's not the topic I can't seem to get enough of. It's AI.
AI. Yeah. So you know what? So number 12, SEMGREP is one of the earliest security companies to find a fit for large language model AI in their product, and it's one of the things it does a good job at. Basically, SEMGREP checks your code for issues, and what's the holy grail for any security company that finds a bunch of issues? Is to magically fix those issues instead of just piling them onto a human who has to manually go out and fix them. And that's what SEMGREP is using GPT-4 to do, is to say, hey, the rest of your code has this convention going on. This code doesn't meet that convention. Let's make it consistent. So that's encouraging.
Yeah, not only is it encouraging for me, it also immediately puts my innovation side of my brain into overdrive. Like, okay, why can't what's interesting is that they took a broad solution and applied it to a very niche, narrow problem, right? The ability to fix code syntax or even to just fix code bugs in general, right? That is really exciting to me, and I know it feels weird to say, the big potential solution that is AI. I'm excited about the tiny thing, but it's taking the big potential solution and making it have a value-based output that really has me excited. And so if we take AI and say, apply that to CloudSec, well, we can actually get in and make sure that every S3 bucket that's out there is not encrypted or is properly encrypted and not accessible to the world. And if it is, lock it down. That should be an easy type of LLM style fix, right? It should have been something even before AI and LLM, but we can even get more generic and say, look at configuration issues that are causing problems and automate the fixes. But the key is making sure there's scope to a quantity and a size that does not cause hallucinations, high risk, mass configuration changes that break all sorts of pieces of our infrastructure.
Exactly. And the nice post is it's not hand wavy. There are tons of examples in it. Like, they're showing exactly, here's the goal, here's how we're doing auto triage, here's how we're doing some of this stuff, and here's a whole bunch of examples with code.
I wouldn't expect anything less from the SEMGREP crew. I mean, they're really on point when it comes to AppSec. They're one of the most technically adept groups out there. So for them to apply AI, they're not going to put out a dud. They're going to put out really high quality overlay.
Sharp folks. Yep. All right. Yeah, and I agree. That's a pretty exciting one. But from there, I did want to talk momentarily about the only funding one I really want to talk about is the Cybereason one, and it just had me thinking back to the point where, between 2014 and 2017 maybe, where the next gen AV and EDR competition got real hot and heavy, like before they could replace the incumbent AV companies, and they were all going head to head. Like it wasn't clear. Sentinel-1, Cybereason, CrowdStrike, Cylance hadn't sold to BlackBerry yet. Like, they were all kind of neck and neck, and it really looked like Cylance and CrowdStrike at the head of it there. And fast forward 5 years, and you've got CrowdStrike throwing money around, investing in other security startups, while Cybereason is still raising money.
So was this entire, I didn't read the article, was this entire $100 million from CrowdStrike?
No, I'm comparing it to CrowdStrike. It's from SoftBank.
Oh, okay. You're comparing. Got it.
Last CrowdStrike put $100 million into Abnormal Security, I think is the company.
Got it. Okay. You know what caught my eye on this one was, and I don't remember if we talked about this last week or not, Adrian, but they replaced the CEO on the back of this as well. This was not just here's $100 million, and here's your new CEO.
Yeah, indicative of like trying to solve some growth problems there, maybe.
Typically indicative of trying to solve growth problems it's one of a few things. Growth problems for sure, or potentially a CEO who's done, who's tired, who's burned out, who's just sick of it and says, "Hey, I'm out." That's always something that can happen at this stage. And then, last but not least, it's the growth problem with, hey, here's 100, but caveat of the 100, we run the show. We're now the majority owner.
Sometimes I wonder, like, if I run into any of these people we're talking about or their companies that we're talking about in RSA, like, am I going to get mugged by a founder at some point?
Quite possibly, and it's going to be more me than you because I'm the one that talks the most smack.
I don't know. I talk a bit of smack too. Like, I don't know. You can't hate me too much for some of these names, okay? Like, you picked them.
The names, yes, absolutely. We'll give you.
It's pronounced synergy, even though it starts with an X.
Starts with an X and has an I instead of a Y.
Exactly.
Ends with a GEE.
Synergy.
It's the guys.
Stop giving people ideas.
Sorry.
Because I know Sean is prepped for it. Let's jump to number 17, where we've got a dumpster fire item, and then from there we could go just about anywhere. But just a classic case of both a smart device and just a general, like, don't know how to handle security and vulnerability disclosure company. Just bad all around way to handle it. This kind of thing.
So can you give us the TLDR here, Adrian? So my understanding is they turned off the ability to open and close your garage because of a vulnerability risk.
Yeah, so they ignored this guy for months, right? And then because basically it's a smart, they make a bunch of smart devices. I think just one of them is a garage door opener. And like many of these companies, they nobody security minded was behind the design of it. There was some easy way to, oftentimes it's like the MAC address. It's like you go to the website, create an account, and if you know the MAC address of this smart device, they treat that as authentication. All of a sudden, you can now control that smart device. Or with cars, it was the VIN number. In many cases, like with the Nissan Leaf, if you knew the VIN number, which you can see by looking through the windshield at the dashboard, you could then unlock the car, roll the windows up and down, control the whole thing. So that happened to Nissan. And just over and over and over, like companies making the same mistake, using this like a serial number, MAC address, VIN number as the authentication, as the only thing standing between you and controlling somebody else's garage door or air conditioning or who knows what. And to protect this, they basically just took it down. And the only way you could now communicate with this smart device was over Bluetooth. So they just killed for like, I assume they're going to turn it back on after they fix it, but.
Yeah, no, there's a couple things that jump out at me. First of all, in going along the lines of crappy names, the name of the product is Nex, N-E-X-X. Okay, Google that. All right, let's see if you can even spell Nex. And the funny line is the security researcher who found the issues told Motherboard, this product is completely remote anywhere in the world. So if you want to get in anybody's garage, if you want to open up anybody's gate, if you want to turn on anybody's plug that has a Nex XXX, you can do it. Thought that was pretty funny.
It's even better than that. He said that the smart garage controllers can be searched for and opened based on an email address, device ID, or first name and last initial. and then
really?
worked with Department of Homeland Security, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, and CISA assigned 5 CVEs to this. 1 for hard-coded credentials. 2 of those are for authorization bypass through user-controlled key. 1 for improper input validation, and 1 for improper authentication validation.
Oh my God.
So there's let's just go ahead and check off the boxes, and then you get vulnerability bingo just done. So we originally connected them through their support website. Ticket was closed. Follow up to initial contact. 2 days later, ticket was closed. Reach out directly to the next founder via personal Gmail identified in FCC filings. A few days later, follow up on the next support website. 10 days later, open the case with CISA to work through it. Follow up on the support website, a few weeks later, and then CISA said that they couldn't establish contact and work with them. So they began escalation with their federal team. The federal team was unable to establish contact with NEX. CISA recommended public advisory. So this is from January through February to then March. And then in March, CISA's like public advisory. And then late March, Vice attempted to contact NEX via support and social media and received no response. So March 30th, CISA confirms public advisory, and the public release was April 4th.
Wow, that's just a toilet bowl that kept spinning.
There. He also contacted their support. Their support email looking for help with one of his own products, website. And they answered that.
Yeah.
So they were more than happy to answer a question about their product, but they didn't care that it was completely vulnerable and affecting all the other customers.
Never let it be said that I overused the dumpster fire graphic. Like this is very deserving.
I'll be honest with you, Adrian. I think this deserves an upgraded graphic, like an actual award. So at some point in the future, we need to come up with like a real doozy award of this is the dumpster fire of the month.
Like the Darwin Award of dumpster fires?
Yeah. Yes, because this one takes the cake.
The Pony Awards are coming up, right? Don't the Pony Awards have like the worst vulnerability award? I think they've got an award for that.
Yeah, they do, but I'll be honest with you, I don't think the next XXXX has enough deployed devices to matter.
So it actually gets better. So it's the smart garage door. They also have, they offer smart alarm controllers. In addition to their smart garage controllers. And these controllers connect to home alarm systems like ADT branded systems, allowing users to enable and disable them remotely. So they use a custom WebSocket server to manage messages between the cloud and the devices. But the WebSocket server's configuration fails to verify if the bearer token in the authorization header corresponds to the alarm trying to connect to Nexus Cloud. So that means that any authorized user can access information and signals attended for other alarms. So the signals include the Smart Alarm's device ID, which can be combined with the issue from the Smart Garage one. And it appears that all these Smart Alarms use the MAC address prefix 7C90BD F4 and then the last 2. So they can be brute forced. So then there's also a way to hijack the Smart Alarm devices by simply having the alarm's MAC address. An attacker can register an already registered device and effectively take control of it. As a result, the device is removed from the original owner's account, allowing the attacker to gain full access and arm or disarm the alarm. And again, you can brute force those device MAC addresses, and they all have the same prefix. So yeah.
But they value your privacy. They say that right on the homepage of the website.
Yeah, and when I call companies I work with or talk to, my call is important to them as well, and I believe that.
The automated system. We value your support. You are a valued customer. You're going to be on hold for 72 hours.
Thank goodness.
This is really good because the next products have a 90-day money-back guarantee and a 1-year warranty. So you're protected.
Thank goodness security researchers are looking out for stuff like this. But just like I'm scrolling on their website, and as you scroll down, they add a add to cart thing at the top of the screen. And they're one of these websites that have their product ratings on the website, and their next smart has a 3.5-star rating on their own website.
Just wait. Just wait.
Yeah, 3.5 stars. Sounds like they're doing well.
Yeah,
Okay, I also have to see
Four.
what the media is saying about Nex. I wonder if we can get this article somehow, a link back to that.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, they've got. It's not a tiny company. On their own website, they've got a couple hundred reviews on the garage door controller product. So, loved it until I hated it. That's the title of one of the reviews. Oh boy! Even when it works, it's not that great of a product. Even when it's not extremely hackable. All right,
So if you Google Next Garage, the top questions that for Google, it says people also ask, why is my electric garage door not working? Why is the button on the garage door not working? Why is my garage not opening?
Jeez.
Because it's been remotely disabled.
It's a feature. Let's move on here. There's a few newsletters I just wanted to call out here. Matt Johansson has a new newsletter. He's, I think, 7 issues in, called Vulnerable You. And he's been all over. He's been on the vendor side. He's been on the blue team side. He was at Bank of America for a while. A lot of great experience, and used to give a lot of talks. And then, of course, when he went into Goldman Sachs and Bank of America, not so much. We didn't see any blogs or talks. People who go to Apple or Bank of America, like certain companies, you don't get to do public speaking. And yeah, he's actually going to be on the show. Good point, Katie. We interviewed him yesterday for that episode that's going to drop on April 27th during RSA week, and we talk about this newsletter. But it's a really good one. It's just kind of like a broad, like Defender. I think anybody in InfoSec would get something out of this newsletter. Good stuff, though. But certainly one of the things we're both very passionate about is transparency and breaches, so that we can understand the mistakes that were made, so we can learn from them. And that's kind of what the title of it, Vulnerable You, implies. And then the next one, Threat Prompt, is the meeting of cybersecurity and AI. It's a really interesting newsletter that just focuses on specifically topics that are interesting to people who are both in cybersecurity and interested in AI. So a lot of good stuff in that newsletter that has really kind of helped my thinking around the edges of AI. What's dangerous about it, what it's capable of, that kind of thing. Really solid.
Just subscribe to both.
Yeah. And in the category, while I'm at it, in the category of things that we're not going to talk about too much on the podcast, but I recommend you go check out and read yourself. We've got 2 reports here. Thinkscape's 2022 Q4 edition is out. This is a free report that Thinkst puts out every quarter that summarizes the research that they've seen done in security over the previous 3 months. And they put it out in both a beautiful PDF version, or they also record a 20-minute audio summary of what's in the report. So whichever way you want to consume that information, they make it really convenient. It's totally free, no reg wall, nothing. Highly recommend it. And then the last report here is from Kelly Shortridge and Hosea Dykstra, who I didn't speak because I had COVID for the first time, but we were all in the same group at the last Usenix Enigma conference, and because we were giving similar talks about questioning assumptions. But yeah, this is a good report about kind of considering how you use security resources. Considering that each use of a resource, whether it's budget or people, removes your ability to do something else. So kind of like a big picture, kind of approach to thinking about security and how you put together your program. I'm going to take a breath there and let you guys direct where we go next.
I just want to go back one newsletter, the ThinkScapes one. Totally not that important, but the idea, and you put it here for a reason, no paywall, no reg form. I know that a lot of companies are trying to do marketing, and I know they're trying to collect leads, but there's a big difference between push and pull marketing. And Tyler's, I see the look on your face over there. If you have something really important to say and it's going to help the community more broadly, I am very pro no paywall, no reg form. I know I'm going to get slammed by my own marketing team. Tyler's glaring at me through the camera, but like, I'm sorry, but if you have something that's going to help the community, give it away. You can make money other ways. You can get leads other ways. Have them come to your booth at RSA, scan them when they take their socks from your booth. It's great. But research, important research.
I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. I mean, and the other part of it is a lot of the folks in InfoSec that's going to download these things are going to use made up stuff anyway. So what's the value to that? Like, are you going to get any, I mean, how many solid leads do you get from a contact form for downloading a white paper or an article? I'm curious because I don't honestly know. I don't think I've used a real name yet. Sorry.
It's a single digit percentage.
I have a fake name that I use for a lot of them too, and whomever's email address it is, I'm so sorry for them. I really am.
I use my real information, but generally it's an email account that I don't check often, and anything that has unsubscribe anywhere in the body of the email automatically goes to a separate folder called automated email. So that's how
a good way to do it. I'd never thought of that, Adrian, that everything has to have unsub on it, and so if it has unsub on it, pump it into an automated email system. That makes total sense to me.
For years, yeah, that's I actually have a tweet. One of my most popular tweets was sharing that tip.
Yeah, well, I see why, because I've been in cyber for 25 years, and it never friggin' occurred to me to do that.
Yeah, because you're the guy who puts up the damn form.
So I'm going to take the counterpoint, and
so Adrian,
and the reason
you said you said single digits percentage wise.
No, it depends on the content. That it's not single digits. So it depends on the content. So if the content has significant value, let's assume that this is like a massively super important report. There is a trade-off that every business has to choose between brand recognition by giving it away free, just saying we're going to give it away free and get brand recognition-based marketing, which is fine. Like, there's value in that. I'm not saying that's a bad thing to do. But the trade-off on the flip side of that is I can't get a list of potential people that I might be able to market to, right? By putting it out on the ungated situation. And I think there's a trade-off, a time and a place, and it's largely dependent on the type of content. It's largely dependent on the phase of the company, the size of the company. So let me pose it to you this way. If you're a cybersecurity startup and you have 15 employees, nobody knows who you are, and you just wrote the seminal piece of research that the entire world is going to download, should you give it away free? No, absolutely not. You gate it so that you get the names of people, and now you can start marketing to them. Now, you're Verizon. You're massive. Should you give the DBIR away completely ungated? Yeah, probably, because you already have a massive database. You already know what the 80/20 of the world looks like. You don't need to do it. So my point is, there's a time and a place for gating. There's a time and a place for ungating. And that's just one example, counterexample. Like, there's lots of different versions of why you may gate or ungate. But I don't think that there is a right short answer. And I'm sure all the CISOs of the world are going to flame the hell out of me right now, because they're all like, everything needs to be gated. Don't ever market to me. Don't ever call me. I'll find you if it's something I want. Well, guess what? What if I'm a new company that you've never heard of with a new idea you never heard of? How am I supposed to tell the world, right? So I think there's a balance there, and there needs to be a balance. The number one thing you can do, and I'm going to keep talking as long as I can so Katie can't see. Number one thing you need to do as a marketing org, the number one thing you need to do is honor the unsub. If somebody clicks unsub, honor it. And as long as you do that, I don't have a problem gating, and I don't have a problem emailing you. You signed up for it, you'll unsign up immediately, and I will respect that. That's my
Well,
take.
that's true. That's true.
fine.
But what about a middle ground approach? Why isn't there an optional, both on the front and the back end registration? Because maybe you just want to read it. You're somebody like me. You just want to read it. You have no buying power. I have zero buying power. If anybody is listening to this podcast and I have accessed something and I've used my real company address, I don't make decisions. Don't email. Just don't. I get a million of them from companies every week. But what about if I am in a position to buy something and I read something and I go, I like this company. I like their research. Why isn't there the option to sign up on the back end?
There is.
There should be.
100%. There is.
Because that's
go through
an
the
opt-in.
any good
we take
any
such
good
an
marketing.
opt-out approach in this country. We're going to slam you until you say no. We're just going to hammer you until you say no. What about opt-in? Like, oh, I read this. I like this company. I want to read more from this company.
Well, I think there's a
Substack
spot
does
for
it.
that too, Katie. I think there's a spot for that too, because if we think of all, here's the kick. If you're producing content, if you're producing anything from a marketing side of a vendor today, and you're pushing it into the inboxes or making it available into the inboxes of your target audience, provide value. Provide value in every piece you send, and people don't unsub. They like it, right? And so don't sell them. Don't push your product on them. Sure, you can have your brand in there and you can mention your product, but provide them value in every send you do. Your unsub rates will go through the floor. Your opt-in rates will stay high. I am fine with this approach of, hey, you downloaded something, you're now on the list, you should unsub. I'm fine with that. Because you know what? You know how much I get in a daily basis? I'm religious about clicking unsubs on everything I want to unsub from. I hardly get any spam. Between spam filters and unsubs, I hardly get touched anymore. Like, it works.
But you're still in somebody's database.
So what?
I mean, not that it's hard to find my work email address, like,
Yeah, so
my
what?
name, but it's somewhere in someone's database.
So tonight there's a special episode of Marketer Smackdown, and Katie and I will be in the squared circle. We're just going to beat the shit out of each other. So on to the next topic.
All right. Let's see. Where should we go next?
Where do we go from here that's a little less controversial?
Yeah, we're not going to have Tyler and Katie hating on each other.
How about FDA devices?
Sure.
Only
Non-controversial.
we can only go to
Speaking
that topic. Hang on, we can only go to that topic if Adrian and Sean fight about it.
Okay.
You have to disagree.
So
Sure.
do I have to take the time?
No, I
to
changed my
decide?
mind. We're going to go to 19, cyber insurance. Go.
Go.
Yeah, I mean that's just a clear win. That's FDA, cybersecurity is tantamount to safety, right? It's now a safety consideration. So absolutely, FDA should be able to refuse, a device getting certified if it has crappy security.
Yeah.
Well, we talked
basically, it
about this
says
when
that.
Josh was on a week or two ago. That's when it
Yeah.
came out, and this should be happening.
Yeah.
It seems very reasonable. I mean, the device manufacturers have to submit plans to monitor, identify, and address in a reasonable time frame any determined post-market cybersecurity vulnerabilities, exploits, including coordinated vulnerability disclosure and plans. And then at the end of the article, it talks about what are those devices that have to have those things. And so as a medical device that is considered a cyber device, if it includes software validated, installed, or authorized by the sponsor, can connect to the internet, contains any tech characteristics validated, installed, or authorized that could be vulnerable to cybersecurity threats. When you talk about medical devices, that's probably just about all of them. So I think this is a good thing because there's been a lot of issues. DEF CON speakers have talked about problems with medical devices. Other people have released information about problems and vulnerabilities in medical devices, and they just don't get fixed. And these are things like pacemakers and other things that are pretty important.
Yep. Anything that automates, dosage release, all the infusion pumps, things like that. Lots of important stuff. Another one that I'm really, really happy about. There's a few items here where I'm using all caps, and 22 is another one. But basically, the way I'm reading this is Android is going to start requiring companies who make apps where you can create an account in the app. You also have to be able to delete the account if you delete the app, or have the option to do that. So, in other words, getting into an app ecosystem or a SaaS app or a mobile app, getting out of it should be just as easy as getting it in. Like should be as little friction. If you decide, because a lot of people are just going to sign up for stuff to check it out. The app's crap. I don't like it. It doesn't do what I do. And now I've got this account. They've got my personal data. Like maybe it's like an exercise app or something like that, and it's hooked to biometrics and stuff like that. I gave it a bunch of personal information, height, weight, stuff like that. It should be like delete the app. Oh, do you also want to delete your account and the data that you gave this company? Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm on.
It's
yeah,
almost like unsubscribing to marketing emails.
Easy killer. It's almost.
Hey, away from that.
Yeah, it's almost like you brought up exercise apps specifically for me, Adrian, because I'm on 5 of them for running, probably 4 or 5 of them easily, and I haven't run in probably 7 years.
Yeah, Strava. Yeah, I've got a Strava.
I'm on all of them. Yeah, Met My Run, Strava, the Under Armour one. They all got bought by each other too. So, yeah, all my weight loss plans for the last 7 years are all in there. And I don't run. Do
you occasionally get text messages saying, "Hey, what's happening, fatty?"
No, yeah, I should. But more often than not, what I get is, your friend so-and-so just joined Strava. You should come back. And I'm like, well, no, I'm fat and it's bad. So no.
I get those messages, but they're not from an app. They're from Tyler. He just asks, "Hey, fatty."
Hey, fatty, what's up?
I think that the going back to the topic, I think this ties really well into things like GDPR that has the right to be forgotten, because you're right. If the sign-on process is that easy, then getting rid of it should be that easy as well. If only gyms did the same thing and made it as easy to cancel as they do to sign up.
Yeah, which is why I'm never signing up for a gym again.
Maybe this is the loophole: is you sign up with your Android phone through their app, and then you can later delete the app and then have it remove you.
But they'll still charge your credit card for 3 years.
Yeah, that's why you use one credit card just for them, and then that way you can cancel it.
Yeah, that's crazy. I've heard stories.
There was a whole Friends
25.
episode about it, I believe.
Yeah. That I could see that. I haven't seen all the Friends episodes, but I can absolutely see that making a good one. Number 25 is a really interesting one. We're running kind of long on time, so I'm trying to pick out the ones that are must cover. And 25 is one. 71% of IT security professionals in the U.S. say they've been told to keep a breach quiet, and the number is 44% in the U.K. And when you go to Italy and Germany and France, it steadily drops. I think France is in the teens. But yes, 71% in the U.S.
Adrian, I have a question on that. You say France is in the teens. Do you have any insight? You may not. Do you have any insight into why France is in the teens? Is it because like very harsh punishments versus no punishments, or insurance regulations or compliance? Like, is there some kind of reason?
No, I have no idea. I would love to get some insight from maybe some listeners on why it's lower. And it's not in the teens. It's 26.8%. But I mean that's the total inverse of what it is in the U.S. Yeah.
Yeah, it's drastically lower. So the reason why I asked on if you knew the why, like if you had researched it or not, was because fundamentally, like, there's got to be an incentive-based structure here that makes France do what they're doing. Could it be culture? I guess it could be cultural as well.
Yeah.
But likely it's incentive-based of some sort. Like, you go to jail if you hide it, period, full stop, right? So...
Well, I mean, typically you find that the cultural aspect of it makes its way into regulations, right? Like if you look at Germany, right, for example, or Switzerland, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's. I might have to tweet about that. See if anybody has any insights on that, because I've got. I'm super curious, and I have no idea.
Shocked. I'm completely shocked at the number.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean that goes back to Vulnerable You. We talked about that. I think a little bit when we talked to Matt Johansson, and we also talked about it last night on Paul's Security Weekly. So definitely an important survey there. Some important insights there. That came from, was it Bitdefender who did that survey? Who did that? Yeah, Bitdefender did that survey. So thanks to them for shining a light on that issue. Another issue that should have light shined on it, I'm not sure where it is, but it's about CISOs and drinking problems.
Number 27.
Alcohol abuse, basically. But yeah, that's another one that's not a huge surprise to anybody, but certainly something we should be talking about. Yeah, I've heard it's one of the most stressful jobs. Yeah.
CISOs and founders both, Adrian. CISOs and founders both.
Yeah.
Makes being a security founder a double dinger.
Let's see. Anything else we want to cover? I had a few AI trends there. One of them is kind of funny, number 30. Or we could just jump to the squirrel stories.
Squirrel.
Yeah, I think we should go straight to the squirrel because, quite frankly, if you open up that AI Pandora's box, I'll start talking about it for an hour.
Yeah. So the final squirrel story, the 33, I'll cover that one first because it's not as fun or uplifting as the other one. But basically, there's somebody's throwing shade on Andreessen Horowitz for funding this company. But I think this article makes it sound worse than it is. The title is "The App That Lets You Pay to Take Control Over Another Person's Life." And what it actually is people taking some of their decisions, living their life in the spotlight, basically, like a lot of people already do on Instagram and TikTok and stuff like that, and monetizing it to where, hey, you can influence what the next tattoo I get is, or where I put the tattoo or something like that. Oh, like they've already decided to give up, to let people pay to decide to make this decision for them. It's not like you get to reach out and just control part of their life. Like they've already decided, hey, I'm going to open this up, and they don't even have to do it if they disagree with the result. Just they don't get paid. If they don't.
Oh, so they don't get paid if they actually don't deliver on the result. The payment is held in escrow and returned.
Yeah, that's my understanding of it. Yeah.
Oh, that changes everything, because I thought like you just got paid and they'd just be like, screw off, I'm not going to do it. But if it's held in escrow and I have to then hold up my, tattoo of Katie on my arm to prove that I got, so I can get the money. Well, which quite frankly, I would do that for free, for all transparency, for all honesty. But in general, if it's held in escrow and actually has to be paid back, that's kind of freaky. This is something like an episode of, what is it, the Black Mirror or whatever that show on HBO was. This feels like it should be an episode of Black Mirror.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's that much different from how a lot of people are using social media today, where they say, tell me what you're thinking down in the comments, and they kind of react and make decisions based on what people say in the comments, and you already have this loop, I feel like, in existing social media apps today. This one just throws money into the mix. And like, I'm not going to lie, like that
changes everything, Adrian.
It's not without its issues. But
yeah, you throw money into the mix, it completely changes the incentive structures, because there's going to be people doing dumb stuff like, hey, I will get an entire back tattoo of Elon Musk's face if I get enough upvotes, if I get $10,000 upvotes.
Attention is a huge motivator also, though.
This is just asking for freaking trouble. I'm going to sign up for it.
It depends. I mean, attention is a motivator, but a lot of times the attention is in service of the hope of money, right? Like, this is why we have all of those stupid reality shows first of all, they're not reality. A lot of them are scripted, but you have people who do those for the attention in the hope that they will then be hired for some other type of entertainment kind of thing, whether it's for an online magazine or another show or whatever the case may be. That's so one feeds into the other for sure.
Yeah.
Nunu, it's called.
Nunu. Yeah, nunu.co if you want to check it out. And it's pretty much at the level of quality as you would expect. I just immediately, I start making this face. For those listening, I'm cringing. Yeah. Yep, it's what you would expect. For the other lighter squirrel story, where's our squirrel? Do we have some squirrel graphics?
It's chasing another squirrel.
It could be that it would cover up most of Sean. If we put that graphic up, that might be the issue.
Oh, covered. But and Sean and Katie are both gone. We're a two-person show now.
Yeah. Or they can play with the graphic.
For those of you that can't see the visual, both Sean and Katie are putting their heads into the squirrels' mouths and doing funny stuff.
No, I have a keyboard over my face.
Nice. It looks like squirrels. Looks like there's some violence going on. The squirrel's hitting you with the keyboard. But
there's my squirrel. Sorry, I reduced my screen. I didn't even see that I'm being eaten by a squirrel.
Yeah, you're getting beaten up by a keyboard. Yeah. So the other squirrel story is an article in the MIT Technology Review, which if you have any trouble reading any of these MIT articles, I think there's 2 of them I use for stories here. If you throw them in incognito, it'll let you read the whole thing. I think if you hit it's one of those where if you hit the site 3 times, it's going to start hiding it from you. And I give them money. I get the print version of this, and it still doesn't let me see it when I'm signed in. So I don't know what the deal with that is. But I've always loved the idea of, I've always thought prosthetics are cool. Like not just for people who need them to restore some kind of function, like if you lose a limb or something like that, or especially in this age of 3D printing, but also the idea of using them to extend what anybody can do. Like I always thought the idea, if you're working with something that's with things that are very sharp or very hot or something like that, you could have some kind of prosthetics that allow you to have the full function of 5 fingers of or 8 fingers, or how many fingers you want. You can just kind of go nuts with the idea of prosthetics here and extend how strong you are. I've seen those devices they're working on for people in the military, and even just shipping, working in warehouses and stuff like that makes you 30% stronger than you would be normally without assistance. So it's just really gets my imagination going.
I am a bit concerned though, because
a bunch of years ago, there was a runner who lost a leg and got a prosthetic, and they have those legs, the prosthetic legs that are designed for runners.
Oh
and
yeah,
they
can
said,
run faster than
you're going to be faster than the people who have the body parts that they were born with. And he was banned from competing in anything that wasn't an quote adaptive athlete category because it made him faster. If you don't get that lactic acid buildup, you've got an advantage there. So it's pretty cool in some ways. You have to, in those cases, you have to put up with a lot of pain, a lot of suffering. So why shouldn't it be an advantage, right? To get something back for that. That's pretty cool.
Plantar fasciitis is not an issue for that guy.
I did see many years ago a documentary that covered something similar to this, and a certain Dr. Otto Octavius had additional limbs, and it didn't work out so well for a certain young gentleman named Peter Parker. So I'm always a bit wary of these things.
Oh, I mean, everything's dual use, right? that has a certain amount of power. Yeah.
Comes with great
Doc,
responsibility, right?
I mean that's I think the stuff is really exciting, especially like I've seen several creators on YouTube who have lost fingers and like made their own replacement fingers just with like elastic and 3D printers and, wow. Creativity and ingenuity. And it's just, I think it's so cool that we live in an age where, you can have an accident, lose a finger, and then make another one for yourself that works as good, if not better. Now you can have a flashlight on the tip of your finger. Like you can do all kinds of really cool, crazy stuff. And specifically in this article, for people not looking at it, the example that they give is a second thumb on one hand. So I guess a third thumb if you're considering both arms. So you can grasp extra things. But neat stuff. Makes me happy seeing that kind of creativity, people building that kind of stuff. Any other thoughts before we wrap here?
No other thoughts from me other than Sean has killer hair today.
Thank you.
He does.
You're looking good.
All right. Thanks so much. I'm really enjoying the 4UP view. I think we should continue doing that, especially for the news segment. Big thanks, Katie, Tyler, Sean, for joining today. It's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
And big thanks to everybody listening or watching to this week's episode. We'll be back next week. And the week after that's already in the can. It's already recorded.
There you go.
Recorded yesterday in the future.
Bring RSA week. Yep, a lot of good stuff coming up. So tune back